radio program on Tuesday night.
Radio.com. Now, Portal Paranormal Talk Radio.
And welcome to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm your host, Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
How are you, Angela?
I'm fine, Tuesday Miles. How about yourself?
I'm great. We need to plug our station. So you are listening to UPRN 105.3 New Orleans on the, is it the Paranormal Radio Network? I get that always mixed up on it.
Of course it is, the Paranormal Radio Network.
Absolutely, on it. So we've got some, today we're going to bring in our guest right away instead of having our hour that Angela and I usually have and chit-chat and everything. And, I just couldn't have this guest on actually for 1 hour. She's just got too much to say.
I know a lot of interesting things tonight.
And lots of interesting. This is new for us, Angela, because, we've been saving up for a guest that, to me, is very knowledgeable about her experiences, seems that she is just, there's just so much to say about Nadine, and this is who we're talking about is Nadine. Now, Nadine, is it Lalich? Lalich. I knew it was. Welcome to our show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here too. On it, we've really been excited about you. Come on, because like I was telling Angela, we haven't had a guest on that has gone through the experiences that you have, and we've kind of been waiting for somebody that, we felt that had it all and could talk about it all. And you got this book out, this great, excellent book out, and it's called Alien Experiences.
That's right.
How did you come up with that title?
Well, it's pretty much tells it in a nutshell. The book is simply about people who've had contact with non-human entities, apparently, allegedly, and they're alien in nature. So the book is full of alien experiences indeed.
We call them aliens because the fact is that we know not much about them. I was thinking about this earlier. Really, why is it that we call them aliens?
That is a good point, isn't it? Well, I think certainly in terms of the book and how we handle it in writing the book, that was Barbara Lamb and myself. We're using the term alien simply because it is not your normal earthbound human individual that we're talking about. I think there's still a lot of question as to whether or not we're dealing with extraterrestrials, indeed, that come from off-planet, that come from inner Earth, or are possibly interdimensional. But we use the term alien because they are certainly not a typical earthbound human being.
Interesting. It's almost like because the fact is we have all of our different nationalities, that the fact is that is this just another different nationality that we have? But it's from another planet.
I certainly hope down the line we look at it that way.
I hope so too.
If we're going to end up looking at a world picture and a universal picture down the line, which we're bound to be heading for.
I mean, in the dictionary, and I'm looking at Webster's dictionary under the word alien, and it says foreign, different in nature.
There you go.
Huh.
So tell us a little bit about the book, Nadine, Alien Experiences. What can our listeners expect by reading the book?
Well, the book is basically targeted for people who have had some type of unexplainable, anomalous experience with life forms other than human beings. These are people who may or may not have fully conscious memories of contacts. They may be people who have had ongoing dream experiences. But basically what it amounts to is that Barbara Lamb is a psychotherapist, and I met her about 3.5 years ago. And she has been doing this work, working with hypnotic regression, with alleged abductees, people who have had these experiences they can't define. They have a great deal of difficulty dealing with them, trying to incorporate these strange encounters into their ordinary life. It becomes a very intense and difficult challenge for many people. It was for me, and that's how I met Barbara initially. I met her at an organization because I finally decided I was ready to address the issue. So the book talks about a lot of the basic information somebody might need to have if they had some extraordinary experiences that they could not identify, cope with, where they may suspect they're having some type of contact, alien contact. So the book talks about a lot of generalities. We have a list in there as far as, I think there's 65 questions that you can review to help you to decide whether or not you may have had some type of contact out of the ordinary. We have 24 stories. These are case histories of people who have had these types of experiences, and we have one long involved story, which of course is the story of Marie, which is really the story of
Do people think
my
they're
own
dreaming,
experiences.
that this is just a dream that they're having?
Well, it's not. There are a lot of situations where dreams are a part of it. Very intense dreaming is a part of it. Generally, there's a lot more present than just your typical standard dreams of these encounters.
Because I was reading through here, and you were, and some of the questions that you had in regarding the time of day that people are mostly abducted, and I found that really interesting. The fact is that it's between 11 and 5. A lot of times it's during while people sleep, and so that would be like if you're sleeping, thinking, here all these things are happening to you, but the fact is that you're not awake at your home, so you're someplace else and on it, and I would think that people would have that trouble of thinking whether this was a dream that they were, what a real dream they were having.
Well, how perfect is that?
Jeez.
I mean, if you think about, say, one human being wants to break into another person's home, how oftentimes is a robbery done in the middle of the night when people are sleeping? Why? Because you want to catch them off guard. Why? Because it's easier to handle the situation if you're an intruder. It's a whole lot easier.
And I have a question.
So if you've got a situation where you've got a covert operation going on in some form, what better time to do it
Absolutely, yeah.
than the middle of the night when a person is least suspecting, they're sound asleep, they're going to be awakened and confused, and they're going to be a lot easier to handle.
It's more of a form of intimidation as far as...
But by no means is that the situation in all cases,
Okay.
by any stretch. There are a lot of encounters that take place in normal daytime hours, but the majority of them, from what I understand, is probably taking place during the wee hours in the morning.
Wow.
So Nadine, you said that there was a character in Alien Experiences called Marie, but actually that long case that is revealed is actually you. Is that correct?
That is me, yes.
Wow.
I am a very organized and relatively conservative person. It has taken me a very, very long time since my first conscious experience, which was in June of 1991. It's taken me a very long time to come to terms with this, and I actually had a 15-year silence with only one other person in my confidence. So by the time I came out and I made a decision, I do not have a victim mentality and don't want to adopt one, and I'm the type of personality that when a challenge is presented, rather than running from it, I want to examine it and look at it. So eventually I got to that place with this, and but it was a process. And by that I mean that initially I wasn't even going to use my name. I was going to use a pseudonym on the book.
Right.
Because this is a challenge. I work in a very conservative arena in my regular work.
Well, very professional,
Yes, and
you're
this is not
professional in
something
all
that is well
aspects of your life.
received. And I have to be, at least in my mind, I felt that I had to take a very, very conservative approach to this. That's my nature. That was my comfort zone. So initially I wasn't going to use my name. But what happened is, as I began to work on the project, more and more what happened is that as I examined 15 years of journals, because during this time, the time of silence, as these occurrences kept happening in my life, my outlet as a writer was to write. So I kept records and had only one person that I communicated with. But during this time, I, just lost my train of thought here.
Well, during the time you were keeping the journal.
Well, as I was keeping these journals, there's a process taking place anyway. And by the time I met Barbara and I came out with the journals, and I began to communicate openly about this with her, I met several other people. The search for truth and the unfoldment of truth, my truth, became far more important as the project progressed. I took a handle of it, I took a stand, and I decided I would just move into investigation with this fully. No more was it going to be swept under the carpet. I was going to look at it completely. I wasn't going to let fear rule my life. And as I did that, my quest for truth became prominent. My fear of ridicule of my peers, I have the type of personality I have is I want to look good. I don't want to look like a fool. Sure. But this is not a society where anybody makes it easy for us to talk about these issues. More often than not, when you see a program, say, for example, the History Channel, AMC, these different programs are on Discovery, they don't very often have ordinary people discussing it at length. They have experts because they feel more comfortable and safer with that. It's a challenge to risk and put yourself out there.
Oh, and you were on the Discovery Channel.
I was, yes.
Well, when you work with very professional people, the fact is that they have no clue that you're even gone through anything.
No, of course not.
And you have presented yourself. You're a businesswoman, but you're also you illustrate. You're an artist. You're not just a writer. You're not just you're a whole bunch of things, and very good at it. Also, but
thank you.
When you and I were talking earlier, something caught my eye because I went back over your bio and highlighted things that you have you categorize information into a database. There's gathering there. There's hundreds of projects that you coordinate. Okay, there's that. You're filing legal documents, many of them problem solving. Ability to organize and monitor. This list goes on and on and on about the things that you do. The fact is that because you're remembering all of this, information for many other abductees here that they don't remember or recall the full abduction or the contacts that they've had with the aliens.
Well, that's true. I guess my particular nature, I'm sure there's others like me out there, but my particular nature for most of my life, I've been a cataloger of facts. In my day job, the type of work that I do, it's project management. So I am always gathering large amounts of information, checking on status on projects, doing project reporting, large volumes of material in great detail. As an artist also, I take in a great deal. I had a company about 5 years ago, and I manufactured a fairly large line of products.
Hugbandit.com.
Hugbandit, yeah, hugbandit.com. And in doing that, I have to wear a lot of hats. I have to be multitasking. So I would say probably one of my strongest abilities is collecting and organizing information and relating it. That's where the database, I use different types of software for database integration of facts and correlating information. So when approaching this type of a project, it was certainly helpple.
Well, also, too, is because, this is the thing is that I feel many people go through, why me? Why did they choose me? Is it just, they just don't fly around and just pick somebody out randomly. And, and what we've, read about, studied about is that this comes from maybe a genetic long line of family members on it. Is there anybody else in your family that has experienced something like this, Nadine?
My father.
Your father did. Okay.
My father's deceased now, but no, he did. There was instances where he did appear in these situations.
Okay.
So Nadine, when this first started happening to you, were you in denial? Did you question as a logical individual that, hey, there might be something a little bit off with me? Or did you know, hey, this happened to me?
Oh, no. I question everything. I am very skeptical, and I question everything. That's part of the reason why it's taken so many years for me to discuss it and talk about it until I could get a footing and feel comfortable in my own reality and my truth. That is not to say that I can give you a definitive statement as to exactly what's going on. That's impossible.
Right.
That this is not an arena where we've got absolute proof. I tend to be quite a bit skeptical, actually.
Well, I think it would be something difficult to prove, Nadine, since it is a subjective experience. The masses are not. You don't walk into a city and say 100,000 people out of this city are saying the same things. I think that it's probably very difficult.
Well, one of the things that you're dealing with when you're dealing with me is you're talking, first of all, to me, I'm a little less than 4 years standing in this new world. And what I mean by that, talking about it, looking at it, addressing, learning about it. Prior to that, I have kept this a private experience. I am the best expert at this point on my own personal experience. That's where I'm solid. Psychology and the nature of the human mind has been another one of my my studies and my fascinations for many, many years. When this is not a situation where I remembered for years and years. It's not anything where I had memories from childhood. This is me going on a trip to Sedona, Arizona in June of 1991, never being into UFOs, never watching programs. Maybe I read a science fiction book when I was a teenager. I think I saw the movie E.T. and one other movie. Alien abduction is nothing at all that I had any interest in. I go on a camping trip in June of 1991 with a friend in a remote area of Sedona, Arizona, and I have this phenomenal, shattering, shocking encounter that changes the course of my life. So this is not something that I pondered, thought about, had memories of a child. This is something that was a rude awakening. And then it took, after that experience, it was a denial. You bet. You bet.
So, Nadine, can you take us through a little bit of your experience in Sedona?
Sure. A longtime girlfriend and mine, we decided we're going to go to Sedona. We take a van. We're doing a little camping. We were going to do a little hiking. It was kind of an outdoors trip just outside of Sedona, probably about 10 miles in a very remote area. It's getting dark. We decided to pull off the road in a very remote, it was certainly a camping area, but it was the type that's very rustic. There was no electricity, there's no, I think there might have been running water, but there was nobody there. There was maybe, 10 or 12 dirt areas where you could pitch you could put a tent or something. That's where we put our camp that night. And I had a creepy feeling, actually. It was a very strange feeling. I don't know if it's psychic, I don't know what it was, but I felt we were being watched. It was a very strange feeling. There was nobody around. We set up camp. We had a campfire. We had all of our food, our belongings sitting outside, set a nice little area up, and talked for a while. I went to bed. My friend went to sleep afterwards at some point in time. My recollection is the light goes on in the van. The light goes on in the van. This was one of the Toyota vans where the back hatch would go straight up.
Right.
The hatch goes up. The thing I see coming towards me, I sit up in my sleeping bag, and I see a hand with 3 fingers and a thumb coming towards me. To say I was horror-stricken is lightweight, but I was. I was speechless, horror-stricken, adrenaline rushing through my body, and I was removed from the van. When you're in a situation,
how were you removed from the van?
I'm sorry?
How were you removed?
I am not sure. I don't remember being touched, but the next thing I know, I'm standing at the end of the van.
Okay.
And as I'm standing at the end of the van, somebody's in front of me that I cannot get a direct look at, very large and tall, and there's 2 small beings to the side of me. I can certainly say I was never more terrified before or since in my life from this first experience.
It's like you want to scream, but nothing comes out.
Nothing came out, no.
Okay.
I mean, your whole reality is shattered in a moment like that. The next memory that I have is I see some faces off, short faces off around the bushes. I feel myself moving across the ground, but my feet are not moving. I appear to be about 4 or 5 inches above the ground. I'm not sure how I'm being moved. Something's hitting my face, and I see a bright white light through the trees that we're heading towards. That's my experience. The next thing I know, my next memory I have, is I am sitting in the van. I'm sitting up, not under the covers. I'm drenched in sweat, and I'm hysterical, crying, sobbing, hysterical, trying to get some grasp on it. What happened? What happened? How did I get here? Oh, please, this couldn't have been real. It couldn't be real. This is quite shattering.
Did you have the recall once you were back in the van? Did you realize at that moment that I just had an experience, or were you still disorientated and think, what did happen to me?
I knew I had an experience. I knew it was real. But I didn't want it to be real.
Right.
You don't want this. You don't want... This is I mean, I suppose if somebody had really pondered this kind of thing before, maybe you'd be better prepared. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have any hints this was coming. Now, the next day, interestingly enough, I tried to wake my friend up. Couldn't wake her up. Shook her, pushed her, hollered, yelled. Nothing would move her. And at this point, it was 3:30 in the morning, and I could not sleep, and I was just terrified that they were coming back. It's a very strange place to be when you're accustomed to having your feet firmly on the ground, and so to speak, and it's not there anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be getting the guns out by then.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Because, having been a student of psychology for many years, I'm looking for answers. Could I be hallucinating? Could it be this? Could it be that? But you know that you know.
Exactly.
You know the difference. That is an arena that I did know a difference in. That is an area that I was familiar with. So I was checking, hoping, praying I could find something that would tell me this didn't happen. I waited till it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. It got light. I stayed sitting up. I couldn't move her. When the light came up, I went out. And my friend woke up at the same time, and she came out. I was very shook. We began to talk. And she was very receptive, and she was the one friend I was able to confide in over the next 15 years. And the thing that was most disturbing, if there was a physical sign, the physical sign was the fact that all of my belongings were gone. Nothing else. My clothing, my bags, my shoes, everything was gone that had anything to do with me. All of her things remained, all of our food, all of our nice camping equipment, lanterns, coolers, everything that we had was there. But everything right down to my personal towel was gone. So we searched
and
the area.
And remained gone, is that correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. No, we never found it. We did quite a search of the area. And at that time, my mind was just grabbing, what could have happened? Could an animal come? Could they take it away? Why would somebody come and you're looking for something. I was looking for peace of mind is what I was looking for. But I couldn't find any. We cut our trip short because I was not able to...
Okay, Nadine, hold that thought for a second. We have to go to a quick break for our station identification. Sure. We'll be right back. This is Portal Paranormal Talk Radio.
Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back.
And welcome back to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio. I'm Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
Angela, can you give out the website address for where people can actually go in and buy Nadine's book?
Yes, well, the book is called Alien Experiences, and you can go to www.alienexperiences.com.
Nadine, did you do the illustrations for this book?
I did.
Oh, and the pictures that I saw today are in the book also?
Yes, they are.
Oh.
And more.
Oh, you know what? She is, I can't tell you enough. The way that she illustrates her pictures, and you're drawing from memory and exactly what you perceive what they look like. Amazing drawings.
absolutely extraordinary drawings there, Nadine, and, quite detailed. It's not, child's writing. It certainly is very detailed art.
Yes. Nadine, can you tell me how many species, or I guess I can call them that, how many species of different aliens have you encountered?
Initially, I had only 3 for many years. And as of about 3 or 4 years ago, some additional interesting experiences transpired, and now there is 7 that I have encountered.
7 different types of aliens.
Do they have names, Nadine?
Not to my knowledge.
Names?
Nothing that I've picked up.
Okay, personal names.
No.
But do they do call themselves a type of species, like for instance the Greys, the reptilians and stuff? Do they introduce themselves?
No.
They don't.
No. Being in one of these scenarios, and I think it's important to recognize that, one of the things that after I got my experiences out, and I will be having a second book come out that will be just details of my own life story. It will be Alien Experiences Book 2, A Detailed Life of Marie. And Marie is my middle name, by the way.
Ah, very good.
Yeah. I think it's very important to recognize, and I don't hear this often enough. Now that I'm stepping into this new world, I don't hear this often enough. I think it's important to recognize that the state of consciousness that these take place in is in a variety of ways. Okay? Myself, personally, I've been able to identify 4 different states of consciousness that I have been in when I've had experiences. One would be the extremely conscious, vivid state like happened in Sedona, Arizona. And it would, if you were to recall a memory, say, for example, that, say the 2 of you are doing your interview now, and later on you recall to a friend how you were, say Tuesday, you recall that you were with Angela on this show. Okay. The way that your memory brings it back would be that it was a real memory. It's stored that way, conscious, tactile, all kinds of senses are included. That's how I remember some of the experiences that I have had, like Sedona, like I had just walked out of the other room. That's how real it is. That's how much information is there. Then there are 3 other states. The point I'm making here is that when people talk about this, what I've observed, and maybe it's because they don't know exactly how to articulate this, I don't know, but too often it's talked about in a very casual way. It's talked about in a way experiencers, because they're traumatized. They don't always have the wherewithal to describe an event. But these events are not always totally clear. You get bits and pieces of information. One of the things in the book I talk about is that when you are reviewing an experience that has happened to you, and you have had, now mind you, in these experiences, you're having some kind of, you're dealing with 2 things. You're dealing with the beings that are involved with this are taking an attempt, are attempting very much to distort your perception. They are trying to distort it. They're getting you in the middle of the night oftentimes. They have a way to affect the functioning of your brain. We know that electromagnetic waves can affect the way our body operates, the way our brain functions. They have ways of affecting. They put people into a certain state. You have to be very strong and really, really exercise yourself to try to stay alert, coherent, and aware. You have to fight it. You can't always do it. So therefore, you get pieces of information. Some of it is like a piece of a movie. You see a lot of information in front of you. Your memory recalls it very easily. Some of it comes like a slideshow, bits and pieces, and then a blank in between. When they talk about, I have not done much regression work. Now, regression work is a big deal in working with experiencers. And I do believe it. I believe it's a reality with a very conscious, careful, capable therapist. For me, I have had only 6 or 7 regressions. My memories have been consciously recalled, most of them. But in the few that I've done, I'd say, for example, I've got a memory that unfolds like pictures, still pictures all right? Under
Right,
hypnosis,
right.
we're able to help fill in some of those blanks, get a little additional details of the room, additional details of the being, of what's happening, of the procedure, whatever.
Right, because you make a comment, this does not necessarily invalidate the information that was recorded, but it means that the memory will punctuated by gaps or blanks, turning the recollection of the event more into a slideshow than a continuous movie. And so the fact is that, like you say, it's a slideshow, that there's gaps in there. And so, does it become that part where you start filling in the gaps? Or
I suppose that would be very possible for some people to do.
Okay.
I think that a person that is seeking the truth, that has to be the first desire. You have to want to seek the truth. Even if it means stepping into fear. None of this is what I chose.
Right.
None of this is what I want. Okay? I think one of the first criteria, if you want to examine anything, especially when you're personally involved, when you are being affected by outside sources, and you're affected by a tremendous amount of fear. Yes, it would be easy to fill in pieces. Yes, you'd have to be very careful.
Well, I wouldn't want to fill in pieces that was so traumatic. The fact is that you try to lighten it up a little bit so as it's not...
In my case, I would be prone to play it down. Now, you might run into somebody who could be an attention seeker.
So, Nadine, take us back to your first memory of your abduction. Can you tell us, I guess, not only what is happening to you, but also what the environment looks like?
Well, first of all, my first experience in Sedona was limited, my conscious recollection.
Right.
There was a tremendous amount of fear, and the part that I told you, I saw two different types of beings. I saw myself pulled out of the van. I saw myself moving across the ground. I was looked at by other beings, of the short ones and the variety in the background, and I saw this huge white light we were going towards. That's all that I got. Okay? Later on, years and years later, this particular experience was one that I did do some regression work with Barbara Lamb. And we were able to fill in some of the pieces. And it was very interesting. Because in doing that work, what I'm describing to you initially, that is the slides that I got. Later on, we were able to fill in a little bit more. And I did indeed, the white light, behind the white light, was a craft of some kind. I did have, through hypnotic regression, was able to continue through that experience and to find myself inside of this craft, to see a couple of other beings and to have more information.
Have you seen that white light each time that something was about to happen?
No.
No, okay.
So, Nadine, you said that you were inside of a craft. Can you tell us what you saw?
In the initial experience that I had, June of 91, as I walked, the craft opened up. I came into a very circular, round room, domed room, and there was, on the other side of the room, a large array of panels running across the center. It was as though you were looking at two saucers, one on top of the other, the shape of the room, and along the center was a ledge, and along there was a large number of lights and controls along there. Mm-hmm. There was an examination table in the center of this room, and on the other side of that table, there was standing a very, very tall white entity that had an unusual type of shaped head, and wearing some kind of a long, like a long smock of some sort, very cold. You asked earlier whether or not there was any communication to me directly. No, nobody communicates to you in this kind of a scenario. As years went on, it got much more complex, these interactions. And there certainly was some communication, not by way of names. It's almost as though you're there for their purposes, but it's like an afterthought. No one's going to communicate directly to you unless they are after something. They want some information. Usually it's testing and some kind of information.
Well, they took you through a series of different types of examinations. Isn't that correct? Your physical examination and then mental examination. I find it interesting and I've heard others talk about the pelvic exam and to women, of course, and to men, and thinking that, there's got to be a reason why that they, because many people have talked about this pelvic exam, that there's something there that they're, what do you think that the reason for that is?
Well, I think it's real important, first of all, to understand that any comment I would have as to their reasoning would only be speculation on my part.
Okay.
I can only speculate. I cannot. I mean, if you were to look at different species on our planet and how their brains function and what their intentions are, how they interact, you're going to find between the species very different. It's all very different, what they're looking for, and how they communicate. Now, the same thing is going to happen with species off of this planet. We are not necessarily going to think the same way. Our brains are not going to function necessarily the same way. Our intentions, desires, goals could be very different. I can only guess. Now, I'm somewhat tainted in that after having collected all of my own data, my journals, the work I've done, I have mass volumes of information and drawings that I have done prior to looking at anybody else's information. But since that time, if you're going to try to form some idea, surely I hear now people talking about they're doing genetic things, they're creating hybrids. I don't know. Does it seem feasible with the experiences, what I've seen and experienced? Yes. Is it feasible? Yes. Yes, it could be one of their intentions that they are taking genetic material from human beings and blending it with other life forms. Yes, it's possible.
The woman's, of course, eggs and the men's, of course, sperm on it. And on it, is it like test tube babies that they would be having? I mean, I was talking with Angela. I said, I wonder who carries the child, the human or the alien? But then, after thinking about it, neither.
Well, this is not my personal experience, but I can tell you that what I have been made aware of in beginning to study this, a newcomer to this field certainly, that yes, there is some hypotheses that it would be test tube, and there was also in the book we do talk about some instances where women have discovered that they were pregnant only to have the fetus disappear. And in that circumstance, and Barbara Lamb certainly has many instances of working with people where there is a possibility that person has been impregnated with either genetic material directly from another being or with an egg that is a combination of genetic material from different beings, and she actually carries that child a certain length of time, and one of her abductions it is later removed.
Wow. That is absolutely some incredible, things there, Nadine. So, Nadine, I have to ask you, with your experience with abductions, overall, now that you're looking back at it, do you feel that the experience were positive or negative, or have they all been negative and frightening, or have you learned to, understand it more and feel comfortable with it more?
I don't think there's any such thing as feeling comfortable for me.
Yeah.
Because, frankly, the truth is for me, it is an intrusion. Okay?
Absolutely.
I suppose it could be for some people, but again, my personal experience is that it's never been comfortable. When I started this, when I made a decision about 4 years ago and to address this in my life in a very aggressive and serious way, I was tremendously full of fear, anxiety, discomfort. At that stage, I'm embarrassed to say that I checked my closets before I went to bed at night. I had some strange things that bothered me. Long drives in a car would leave me very spooked out. I had going to bed at night was a challenge to me because I knew there was a possibility something might happen to me in the middle of the night. There were times I'd be wide awake and sense that someone was in the room. So sleeping, I had sleep problems with this. I was plagued by some what I rationally called ridiculous fears, but they were there. As time has gone on, since I have been willing to face these fears and walk into this and start to take an assertive stand, I'm very happy to say that my fear is gone.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Nadine. Nadine, how often, is there a time interval on these abductions, your own experiences? The time
I think
from one
it comes
abduction to the other?
It comes in waves. It can be. I think I have. Now again, we're talking about sometimes you're very consciously aware of them. Other times you have a hint that something happened, and sometimes you don't know. So I'm not totally conscious of what may be happening to me all the time.
Sometimes you don't even know that it's even happened.
Right.
Okay.
I'm pretty alert and pretty aware, but I have a sneaking suspicion that things have really calmed down considerably for me in the last couple of years since I have taken a stand on this and since I am recording so much of it.
I was going to say the fact is I wonder how they feel. The fact is that you're no longer or was put in that victim stage. The fact is the intimidation there is no longer.
One of the things that happens is that as you go through this experience, and I don't know how many experiences I've had. Consciously, I can probably recall dozens and dozens and dozens of them. I can recall all kinds of screen memories and scenarios where I'm being tested. And some of the drawings that will come out in the next book are really interesting. I mean, major pieces of electronics and equipment, things I don't even comprehend, I have seen and I have drawn. I think that as you go through this, one of the things that happens is that there are familiar, you asked me were there names earlier. No, there's no names. But there are certainly several of these beings that have continued to come into my experience. The same ones present again and again and again. It's almost as though you are part of a grand experiment. So there are several of the beings that are involved with this, and you will see them again and again. Mm-hmm. Almost, I can say strangely enough, one of them in particular that I almost feel somewhat a comfortable familiarity. I can't say I like, but a comfortable familiarity over time.
This one does not harm you in any way?
No.
Okay.
Now, I mean, so that's an interesting thing, too. Have I been harmed? Well, I've been embarrassed. I've been violated by being taken places or subjected to various tests and experiments and examinations against my will. But ultimately, over time, you say, I'm still here. That's interesting.
Okay. And so is all these
I'm
other
still
people
here.
that have
Now, I am one of those. I've certainly had physical signs. I have, I would wake up in the middle of the night with ear bleeds and nosebleeds and cuts on my forearms and certainly some signs, physical signs in my body. Something had happened to me.
So Nadine, I've heard a lot of people speak about implants. Have you experienced this yourself?
Well, I have. I had an experience. One of my contacts experiences was fairly involved, and in that one, I was communicating. Now, they don't speak. I have not seen any species speak or use their mouth in that manner whatsoever. It is all a telepathic experience. Always has been.
Have you had any sort of devices under the skin or placed in the body somewhere that you've discovered?
In one of these experiences, I was told that I did indeed have a number of them.
Wow.
And I have not really focused on that much, but as I was preparing some of my material for this book, just before it was ready to go to press, one of my journal entries of about 2 years ago makes notation about the fact that I came back and I believe something has been placed into my right hand. Now, this was 2 years ago. As I was reviewing the material from 2 years ago, it was a very curious thing because I just went in recently for some shoulder surgery. And as I went in, I approached the doctor and I said, I've got this thing in my right hand and it's been there for a couple of years. Well, it suddenly dawned on me. And my intention, Dr. Roger Lear is one of the medical doctors well known in this field, and that has been his keynote, has been to address potential implants in people's bodies. And there's been a number of programs and shows on him. He has a reputation in that area, and I recently spoke to him at a convention and told him I was going to have this thing taken out of my right hand, and he gave me some protocol on how to do that. When I came out of my surgery with my shoulder, I asked my physician because we had planned on doing this, and for some reason he decided last minute not to do it. The important note is that there was a correlation that I wasn't even consciously aware of between that diary entry of 2 years ago saying something's been put in my hand, and then suddenly I'm addressing it. And I'm saying, whoa, wait a minute, isn't that interesting?
Why do you think that they would put those implants? To keep track of you, to maybe to retrieve data from it? What would be the reason?
Well, again, it's only speculation.
Okay.
And speculation is fun. It's ideas. It's something that gives you some a sense of control, but not really. And I can only speculate, but I intuitively sense that I am being tracked, certainly, physically tracked for where I'm at. I can be located. I also believe that things like my blood pressure, my physiology can be monitored. And one very, very important thing, they have an obsession, if you could call it an obsession, with the emotional nature of the human being. It is an absolute baffling thing for these species that I've encountered, a baffling thing. They cannot get a handle on it. They can't see it. They can't touch it. They can't identify with it because they don't have that makeup. But they are completely enthralled with it. And so there's a lot of emotional testing that goes on around this. I believe some of these implants may also be able to monitor fluctuations in the body that indicate emotional changes, like how our body, when we're afraid, shoots adrenaline and other chemicals. Right. They register that, and they like to appear when there's trauma. For example, the death of both of my parents, the activity increased dramatically.
Hello, doggy. Do you think, real quickly, Angela, I'll let you get on to what you were going to ask, but I want to ask because I want to finish with my questions. I have all kinds of questions on here. And do you think, or has there has been abductions where people don't return back to Earth, that they keep them?
Well, I mean, I don't have any knowledge of that, personal knowledge. I have not read of that, but I would certainly think it would be a possibility. Let's face it. How many disappearances do we have in this country or worldwide?
Absolutely. People just all of a sudden disappear out of thin air. And I'm always wondering, I wonder if the fact that it has to do with maybe.
It's a possibility.
Gosh.
And in this range, again, we're only dealing with some possibilities.
So, Nadine, do you think that there is a way to prevent abductions?
Oh, boy, that's an interesting question. I'm afraid to say in a nutshell, I don't think so, no. I can tell you that I've done a number of things myself. I have attempted. I've tried various techniques. I'm a Christian, and I pray, and I have used religious symbols. I have...
How'd that work for you?
Well, it continued to happen.
But did it helped you, though?
Well, I think one of the things that happens with this is that here you've got something that's just jolted and dropped into your reality, and you have to find a way to live with it day to day. I get up, I pay my bills, I go to work, I live a life. I have to have a life. And one of the other parts of my life that's a very vital, important part is I have a spiritual life. I know that there's more to me, and my spiritual life has been a very important aspect of my life, and it's been a major part. So the question was, how do I incorporate all this?
You know what? Hold that note right there because we have to go to our top of the hour break on it and make sure that we all remember where we're at because half the time we forget when on the break on it. So hold that note. You're listening to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio with your host Tuesday Miles and Angela Thomas, and our guest is Nadine. Now I can't say last name. Lalich. That's it. And we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Portal Paranormal.
And welcome back to Portal Paranormal Talk Radio with your host Tuesday Miles.
And I'm Angela Thomas.
And joining us today is
Nadine Lalich.
Okay, we were on the subject of spirituality. We got to that point of, when you were talking about the fact is that, praying or and bringing spirituality in there, that it doesn't so much help you keep them, far from you, but the fact is that it's going to help you innerly on that. And so do you find comfort in that?
I do.
Draw you?
I do.
I would think so.
One of the things that the question arises sometimes, and I think this may have happened in one of our previous phone conversations, is about, is their God our God?
Right.
You know, and if you use the term God, you're only talking about one thing, as far as I'm concerned. And it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. But there's only, when we use the term God, no matter who's going to use it, the reality is, I mean, some people are going to refer to it as Christ, some will refer to it as Buddha, some will refer to it as an energy, like electricity. You're still talking about the same thing, but we're relating to it differently. I think bringing your spiritual life into play, no matter what challenge you're facing, whatever that might be, bringing that to play, using that as a stronghold, a resource, cannot help but bring greater balance and peace emotionally, psychologically. And so certainly, you know, it's about integration. They talk about integration in psychology a lot, and it's very important when you're fragmented to be a whole and functioning human being. You cannot be terribly fragmented. You have to integrate the different parts. And I think you find that's where truth comes into play. You have to tell your truth, but bringing in all aspects of your character, including your spirituality, it gives you a foundation. Did this stop my encounters? No. Did I gain greater insight, peace of mind? Yes. Did I expand my spiritual vision of God and how we relate to God? Yes. My spiritual vision of God has grown tremendously, and basically it encompasses all life, whether that life is born on this planet or elsewhere. God is a very mysterious entity indeed, and I believe.
I agree with you on it. Do they have somebody that is, I would say, you know, not to put it in a crazy form, but the leader, or somebody who is, I would say, you know, more of the bully of the gang, somebody that they really do pay attention to or fear? Maybe
I can't say that I've seen anything in that way, but what I have noted is that I have noted multiple species interacting in these experiences in unison. They work together, a number of these species, to achieve whatever their goals might be. So, for example, you might find a certain type of species that interacts in physical examinations and testing. Another species might step up to actually be involved in the abduction itself. Another still might be involved in psychological testing.
So they all play a part in wanting to know what us humans are about.
Absolutely. So so in essence, do I see leaders? No, but I see individual characters that I've seen repeatedly of a certain species doing a certain job, working in conjunction with another species. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does make sense on that one. Absolutely on it. Wow. You'd think that it would just be easier for them just to come down and ask, you know? I mean, it's like...
Right.
You know what I mean, Nadine?
That's
it's
the
like,
thing.
You know,
why don't they land on the White House front lawn?
Well, we would probably destroy it first.
Of course
you
they
know,
would.
And I was
but think about it. It's not only that.
I mean,
where would our society go?
Right. I mean,
how many of us now are consciously willing, aware, and grounded enough that you could have a different life form stand in front of you, and your hair's not going to stand on end, and you're not going to run screaming or try to hit it or knock it down?
Right.
I mean, our whole foundation of our society would be shifting. Our politics would shift. Religion, as we know it, might collapse. And a lot of not only countries but individuals, their religion and their faith is what keeps them together.
I mean,
it's very complex.
I hit one over the head with a frying pan.
There you go.
There you go. But, you know, it's funny because, you know, and I have this question. If aliens have the power to just abduct anybody they please, why not go after our world leaders?
Good question.
Well, perhaps they have.
Oh, let me just know.
That's
do we know?
That is a thought, Nadine.
Now,
perhaps
you're talking, and here I am. What do I have to risk in coming out?
Right. You know.
And I'm very uncomfortable about it. And I'm only now, after all these years, I would remain silent 15 years.
Yes, that's true.
And I'm an ordinary, average person, leading an ordinary life, friends, family, you know, colleagues, and I don't want anybody to know because I'm going to be laughed at. It's going to affect my reputation. My ego won't like that. It could affect my business. Now, let's talk about a world leader. For example, we had the Phoenix Lights. I think it was 2007, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know how many thousands of people saw those lights over Phoenix. Dramatic, very dramatic. And from what I understand, we're talking about crafts that were gigantic, hovering over the city for a long period of time. And one of the things is the governor saw it also, this is my understanding, and made light of it, and later on had to come back and say, okay, I saw it and I know something's going on. So would our government leaders be skeptical? Well, there's also a possibility that there is a large private sect of people on this planet that are well aware.
Well,
but they know that they can't release the information to the general population because they don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Well, in the mid-1980s, Nadine, I was in Dallas, Texas, and there were two large interstates. It was 5 o'clock traffic jam. And I was sitting there, and when I approached where the two intersections or interstates intersected, there was this huge UFO just right over the intersections. And it didn't come and go. It stayed. So all of these thousands of people stuck in traffic had nowhere to go. They couldn't leave if they wanted to. And the radio stations, from my car radio, all the radio announcers, as I switched the station trying to get information, were saying, please stop calling. You're flooding the station's system. I had my two daughters in the car with me, and I sat in traffic for over 30 minutes, and as I was leaving, looking in the rearview mirror, there still was the UFO. Now, later that night, an Air Force base announced it as a weather balloon, but it was no weather balloon. In fact, several years later, one just like that appeared in a book called The Sightings of Gulf Breeze.
Right.
But, very interesting, Nadine. My oldest daughter, I don't know if that experience traumatized her or what, but to this day, she won't talk about aliens. She won't watch a movie. She won't read about it. She doesn't want to hear anything about it because there's a large fear. So isn't that unusual?
Edie, you mentioned something about when the crafts are that low. Is it that you felt that was a time and that's when they were going to start abducting, is when they get their crafts real low?
Well, that is not something that comes from me. That is an understanding that I have heard in various circles and by researchers, longtime researchers, that I believe that if anything closer than like 300 feet, you may actually be encountering, be having a close encounter. There may be more to it. For example, when I was 16, one of the things, I had seen a UFO on one occasion. And I was with a boyfriend, and I was 16, he was 17. We grew up in Michigan, and we used to take long summer drives into the country. And on one of these trips, in the summer evening, a UFO appeared overhead, very, very, very close to us. I mean, we were quite stunned, and we actually drove the car along with it for a while while it was overhead of us, maybe some ridiculous distance of 600 or 700 feet above us. It was very low. And we were just absolutely astounded and fascinated, and I recall when we went home and tried to tell our parents, they told us we were crazy, of course. Later on, under hypnotic regression, we explored that particular incident. And under regression, a great deal more information came out.
Goodness
and it
gracious.
certainly was.
Did you mention that in Alien Experiences, the book?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Very good.
Wow. I'm not sure if even I've seen, I thought one night I've seen one, but this is the thing is that if you've never seen a craft before, you assume that you think, oh, that's one, and then it's just one of those little helicopters or something. You're not sure of it, but I do know that for each experience it's different on it. Is there different sizes or shapes of the crafts for each species? Do they have their own design for each of their crafts?
Well, from what I understand, and I have a limited awareness of this, but from what I understand thus far is that, yes, there are different types of craft, and that have been reported, to my understanding, certainly the saucer type, triangle type, and a cigar type, I know, and certainly different size saucers. I also, on one occasion, saw a craft with smaller craft over Tarzana, and that an illustration of that is in the book also. And it was a large triangle-shaped craft with smaller triangle crafts coming out of it. And the only other thing that I had some knowledge of is I have been told that some of the cigar-shaped crafts may be tied into the reptilian race. That's as much as I know of this.
I saw a video of the cigar-shaped UFOs actually on YouTube. And do you find, Nadine, that that's something that has happened over the last several years, of those new type of UFOs showing up versus the other type?
Well, again, if you're going to, personally, because, again, I have to keep reiterating this, is that I have limited experience with other people's events.
Right,
okay?
That's true. That's true.
And so that I cannot project that I'm an expert in this field by any stretch of the imagination. I am an expert in my own experiences, in some of the cases I have later studied. That's basically what I'm comfortable and confident in discussing. Otherwise, it's opinion.
Well, let me get your opinion on this, Nadine. Why do you think people are being abducted?
Well, there are various thoughts about that, creating hybrid race. There are some negative thoughts about that it could be possibly, it has to do with the condition of our world, that because we are becoming so powerful now and the nuclear possibilities and what we've done to the planet, that we are now going beyond our range and we could actually be impacting our galaxy and universe in a negative way, that there could be intercession by other life forms to stop us, to educate us.
Do they have weapons? Do you think that they might have weapons that could harm us?
I don't think they operate like that. Now, there may indeed, again, I've had exposure at this point to 7 different species that I've become conscious of and interacted with in these experiences. I have not seen anything like that. When you're dealing with somebody who has a different development entirely, they don't necessarily need to do that. How these crafts, these intelligently operated crafts, how they are, you would need to talk to somebody who is familiar with, nuclear energy or different propulsion systems to be able to see about that. But my guess is that's not what it's about with them. That's not where they're at.
And Nadine, we understand the fact that, like you said, that you are very new to this. This is something you're not going to have all the answers. You're, whatever your call is, what you've experienced is, and stuff. And we're really bombarding you with lots of questions. And I appreciate, that you, answer them on it. And I think you've done a good job on it. So thank you.
So Nadine, there's so many questions to ask you about your own experiences. Do you ever feel that your abductions will end?
Not necessarily. Because of where I am now, and my experiences have become quite complex and very detailed. A lot of there's only a number of them present in the book, but I wonder, honestly, if perhaps once you become acclimated over time, you come to accept this. And again, we go back to the integration. If indeed these are real experiences and these beings are dealing with us, they're going to want to deal with people who are calm, resourceful, able to interact without a lot of irrational behavior. And as time goes on, you become calmer. You become more flexible. You start to integrate this. I'm integrating this into my life. What does that mean? That means to me that if their purpose, some of the species, for example, actually is to help us recoup this planet, maintain this planet, find new alternative methods of living, to somehow bring us into some type of intergalactic cooperation, if that exists, then I would be of more use, not less use. And some of my encounters as time has gone on has been to suggest that I will have a place to act as a liaison when they come out into the open, which I do believe they will.
What is your opinion of Area 54?
It's Area 51.
Oh, 51.
It's the one, Angela.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm thinking nightclub.
That's all right. There's lots of speculation about that also.
I
I know only a little bit about it, what I've read, what I've seen on television. How much of that is accurate and truth, I don't know. Obviously, it is a hotbed of controversy that may or may not be a location that the government uses for creating experimental aircraft. That may or may not be a place that some people believe is where Roswell, the crash at Roswell, the alleged crash at Roswell, where the beans and the ship was kept. So it certainly has been and obviously will be for years to come a controversial spot.
Okay, this is your chance. What would you like to for this interview to go at, Nadine? This is your time for you to talk about what you want to talk about with this. You're experts in the book without us bombarding you on it.
Well,
go ahead.
I guess first of all, there's two mindsets I'd like to address.
Okay.
One would be the person that is the skeptic in general. And I would want to say, first of all, the person that's a skeptic in general about UFOs, about alien abduction, the whole deal. Mm-hmm. I would say that I totally understand. And that I understand that we want proof. We want to hold it in our hand. We want physical, actual proof. But, and one of the things I talk about in the book, and it's an interesting thing, when you're dealing with the mind, when you're dealing with psychology, when you're dealing with behavior, things are not always tangible, and I think that's one of the things that's been shocking to me, and that I would suggest, I love that comment of beware of contempt prior to investigation. It's all about investigation. Mm-hmm. It's all about being willing to really look at the material at hand, to keep an open mind, and to not feel that you need to come to conclusions. I don't come to conclusions on this. I cannot tell you absolutely anything is exactly one way or the other. I can tell you that I believe that some kind of contact is going on, yes. I believe with close to 100% certainty some type. How it's taking place, how much of it is exactly as presented, I don't know. So I try to stay open-minded, and rather than needing to take a rigid stand, this absolutely is happening exactly this way, or it absolutely isn't. Why? Why is that necessary? Why can't we just all cooperate and just continue to gather the information? Part of the problem, I think, comes that you do find people that, you'll notice in the way I communicate and the way that I feel about this is that I am flexible, and I don't try to be rigid and solid on everything. It's not that I don't want to commit. I take a stand when I absolutely believe something, but I look for facts too. And I'm rational enough to realize you cannot conclusively prove a lot of things yet. But I look for that proof, and I stay open to the possibility.
And each person, the fact of it is that it's your experience also too, and I can relate on that. There's things that I could sit here and talk to people that I've experienced, and they're going to look at me saying, it's impossible. There's no possible way. And yet you weren't in my shoes at the time that I experienced
That's right.
So
that's right.
You can not believe me, but I'm not here to make you believe. I'm here to share my story.
And partly what you'll find, and this is what has really, I did one television show. I forget what it was, and we were interviewed. There was a bunch of us sitting there with the camera, and on this particular show, the person sitting next to me went to great detail, very conclusively, that she had a reptilian husband, that she had reptilian babies, and on and on. Now, it's not to say that that could not be possible, and I'm not here to say that she's lying or embellishing. But presentation is so important, and so many people, when they start to talk about these anomalous experiences, are not careful in their presentation. I don't want to just talk to the people who are convinced that this is a reality. I want to expand and contribute to the expansion of consciousness in general, to contribute to open minds, to at least be willing to ponder the possibilities so that we can grow as a species. That's what I think this may be part of what I'm about. And too many times you will find people come out, and unfortunately, I call them the woo-woo people.
The woo-woo people?
Yes. The woo-woo people
Okay.
may not have the wherewithal, may not, some of them have balance, and you have to have compassion, because anybody that has strange, unusual experiences, you know, it takes a lot to process. You've got to be a strong person, and sometimes you need to have assistance. So they go out into the media sometimes and articulate their events in ways that do not come across intelligently or grounded. And that is one of the things that just raises the, you know, attention of the skeptics and the, you know, table pounders and the finger pointers, unfortunately.
Right, they're showing that the Baptists are just, you know, they're a few rocks short in the mind there.
That's right. So the question is, how do you keep your feet grounded in reality?
You know what, though?
In this reality?
After this experience, can we say that we have all our marbles? You know, I
well,
mean, truly, Nidhi, because it really does put you through, you know, I mean, a complete life change. And
yeah, but look at it this way: a person that's never been challenged, a person that's had a so-called perfect, easygoing life, hasn't ever been put to the test. They haven't ever had to stretch, expand, open their mind, contemplate, ponder, meditate, turn to faith, turn to science, transform. A person that's led a sheltered life knows very little, and they're not necessarily the strongest people. They might look like the strongest people, but the truth is they haven't ever been challenged. A person that's been challenged and has come up to the task and rolled up their sleeves and gone at it, now you're talking about something different. You're talking about the explorers of the world. You know, the people that are going to step out on the forefront. Is it easy to step out there? No, not in any area. It's never easy. But do some people, when they have these experiences, their marbles roll around their head? Sure they do. And some, maybe they stay stuck.
No, mine fell out. I had to pick them back up and put them back.
Well, I do know that, you know, in 1974, the two men that made national news, two abductees in Pascagoula, Mississippi, that one of those two men lost his mind, could never come to grips with what had happened to him, and ended up in a state mental facility where, you know, the other one, I believe, is still undergoing counseling, but one could not handle any of it. So I imagine that whatever their experiences were so dramatic and so traumatic that it's hard for the mind to even grasp. And it's hard for us as listeners, Nadine, for us to put ourselves in your shoes, because we have no clue as to how it would be to be abducted by aliens. I mean, abduction by a human being here on Earth is traumatic, but to be abducted by aliens and forced into situations that go against your own will, that is just, you know, unimaginable.
Well, these are monsters, actually. I mean, I would think they look like monsters.
Well, again, remember that when these experiences happen, they come in varying degrees. And perhaps, you know, say, for example, a human being is going through a stressful time. They take a tranquilizer, right?
Right.
And what do they take the tranquilizer for? To calm themselves down so they can cope with that experience. Some of these experiences that we have, abductees, ET experiencers, contactees, we are also subjected to a certain measure of dulling of our senses in order to allow us to cope. This is something that is part of the experience. That's how they quiet us, and it's also a way that allows us to keep our sanity. It's a very interesting aspect. But, you know, there's something, there's also something called, I mean, it's really, the human mind is a very interesting thing, and, you know, disassociation is what can take place. And we know that in normal psychology, when a traumatic event happens, the person in the event, time can slow down, things move slow. They might focus on only one thing, a piece of furniture in the room, a face, or something.
Yeah, I could have a question about that.
These are subjective experiences. They're all a little bit differently. They come down a little differently, but they happen over time. This picture is presented to a person. I grant you, my initial was pretty shocking, but it's been a process, and everybody steps into these scenarios. Those people that are affected have different strengths involved, and I think a lot of people have tremendous difficulty coping. And that's why there are a number of therapists and hypnotherapists, and Barbara Lamb is certainly one of them, and I'm going to be studying some hypnotherapy also, and to be of assistance. And we need people. We need people in the mental health field to help certain people incorporate these things into their life, to integrate it, to find a way to face it, even if they don't have an answer, to find a way to live their life.
On that note, I want to make sure I get this question. I have this on. It says, one day you find yourself researching a topic, and you know in a million years you have no interest in it. Could it be that the aliens have planted that thought into your mind to research something they need knowledge about?
Opinion, I suppose that could be possible.
Okay.
We could certainly be motivated. One thing I do know and believe, whatever is happening in our contacts with these non-human entities, whatever is happening is they certainly can impact us. One of the things that comes up often is this sudden urge to go off into an isolated area before an abduction takes place.
Oh,
that's a very common thing. It certainly happened to me a number of times. Get in the car and take a long drive out. Why am I doing this?
Wow, okay.
So can we be affected? Certainly. Certainly.
I guess because they have mind control, actually,
Well, yes, let's talk mind control.
Oh.
That's what we're talking about. And it could be done on a number of levels. It could be done physically, and it could be done telepathically on some level. It could be done with some type of electromagnetic wave. I know we've done that.
Right.
I'm sure that that's happened in our own government and other governments. We've been able to experiment on people. I've read of some things that have happened in our own human race. We've been able to do that, affect the way that the human mind thinks, and they can actually stop somebody from moving by being bombarded with a certain type of wave. Well, if we can do it, why couldn't somebody else?
We had a guest on the show that said, she claimed that she worked with the aliens because they had some really special healing power. Do you feel that they would even offer healing to us?
Well, how many different types of people are on our planet? How many different types of, intentions do we find within our own race? Could we find various intentions? Absolutely. Could there be times where somebody intercedes, where another being intercedes in the health and welfare of the physical health of a human being? Sure, why not? It's very possible, in my opinion.
In your opinion. My opinion on that one, too. I agree.
So, Nadine, are you going to be appearing anywhere to promote the book, Alien Experiences, or to speak again on your experiences to any known groups that our listeners could perhaps join or see you in person?
Well, at this point, we're in the process, individually and together, Barbara and I, in working out our plan for promoting the book and for speaking. I would say the best thing would be for the listeners to just check with the website. Check in with the website.
That website is www.alienexperiences.com, and the name of the book is Alien Experiences.
I like that one on it. What would be the best advice that you could give somebody if ever they are abducted for the very first time?
Well, I think that is probably that's very close to my heart, and I feel a lot of compassion when somebody is going to be dealing with something like this. And I would say, first of all, the first and most important thing would be be careful in who you share with so that you don't have to face too much ridicule. If you have questions and you consider there may be a possibility you've had some anomalous contact of some sort, I say seek out somebody that is in the field and go talk to them. And be sure that person, again, maintains an open mind. You don't want to be programmed with any information, but take your concerns to somebody that you can talk to openly and honestly. One of the things is I did suffer to a certain extent because I kept repressing. I went on quite a roller coaster ride where these things would come to, into my face, and I'd have maybe a week where the contacts were so intense, and and I would, I'd have some crying sessions myself, and I would talk to my one friend, and what am I going to do about this? And then things would calm down, and I'd shove it back down again. That's been my process and my story. But for mental health, emotional health, it's important to be able to talk to somebody, ideally talk to a professional, a psychotherapist, somebody who can assist you in addressing some of these issues, to find out, are these indeed anomalous experiences? Are they perhaps, you have to be careful also and know that you've dealt with previous traumas. If you've got somebody who's dealing with unrelated post-traumatic stress syndrome, for example, from family issues, and those have not been addressed, those need to be sorted out first. This thing could be very convoluted, and you have to be able to, first of all, sort through the basics with somebody. But by all means, I don't think we should be alone. I don't think we should suffer in silence. I think that doing that reinforces a victim attitude, which doesn't serve anybody, and it's not healthy. That you really want to take a more assertive approach, and the safest way is to go and talk to somebody about it. And if you find you talk to a therapist and they're not receptive to this, or you indeed come to a place where you really need more information, then you can step further into the field, slowly, carefully, and gently.
Nadine, is there any organization or therapy group or anyone that is meeting collectively that you know of, that someone listening to the show that has experienced an abduction that they can reach or contact?
Well, there's two things you could do, and certainly you could contact us at our website, and Barbara Lamb maintains, she is in our local area, but she also maintains contact with a number of organizations in various parts of the country where there are therapists who work with people who believe they have had these abduction experiences. Another wonderful resource is MUFON International, and there's local chapters. You can find that at MUFON.com. And they have access, that's originally how I contacted Barbara. They have access to many other organizations, and they are, from what I understand, I'm a member of them also, the largest civilian organization for serious scientific research of UFOs and related phenomena. And they have resources. There's plenty of resources out there, but certainly they could send an email to our website, and Barbara could arrange to find a referral for them.
Have you heard of Joe Montaldo and his wife Linda with ICAR?
I have a little bit, yes.
Give a shout out on it. Linda's in the room. She's been sitting here to listen to you the whole time, and of course Joe is our station manager.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both on there, and they were very interested in her coming on to the show tonight too. And they help in just an absolutely immense way, and I know that they've helped a lot of people about regarding getting through this, getting the fact is talking about it, sharing their experiences, and taking it seriously. And not, the fact is that they don't judge the people. They sit there and they listen to them. And
thank you. That's very important.
I think it is very important. I know that Linda really helped me get through. The fact is that when I thought I had an experience with it, I knew I had an experience with it, and boy, I was packing everything. I was out of here.
Oh yeah.
I was gone. That was it. I was gone. I wasn't going to give it a second thought. I didn't care if my house was paid for. I'm gone.
Right.
It scared the I can't use those words on the radio, but it scared
heebie-jeebies out of you. Yeah.
Oh, more than that. More than that, and I thought, you know what? Okay, I can deal with the ghost. I can deal with Satan himself. I am not going to deal with the things that are out in outer space.
Right.
Not going there.
Yeah, too foreign.
Too
foreign, too challenging, and too difficult to come to conclusion. Mm-hmm.
There's just nothing. There's no control there, and
right.
That's
Isn't that the truth? Loss of control is very frightening.
Oh, absolutely. Oh gosh, absolutely. On it, and especially for somebody who's used to always being in control and having everything organized.
Right.
That had to really affect you, Nadine.
Yeah. I had a good life. I still have a good life.
Absolutely.
But it's better now that I have learned how to incorporate this. It's not a fragmented part of me, and it's no longer tucked away. I'm finding a way. I think that's the most important message for anybody who thinks whatever they may have any kind of unusual experience. If it was just simply human relation issues or family issues or whatever it might be, the reality is that as human beings, if we're willing to take a stand and do the work necessary, seek out our resources, we can integrate our lives. We can find peace. We can find a way to live comfortably with unresolved issues. And that's what it's really about. Can I live with these unresolved issues? The answer is yes. Yes, I can. I still live my life, and I have a very good life, a very happy life, well-rounded life. And this still goes on.
I don't know whether you have children or not, but, and you don't have to go there with this, but the fact is that if, let's say that you didn't, would you really take that long thought of practice, really having children, that they wouldn't have, that the fear they would go through this also?
Well, if I was a person who had absolutely come to the conclusion that things are a certain way,
okay,
I would say yes. As it is, I'm not. I only hypothesize that generational link may be. And I think it may certainly be a reality. But again, I'm not coming to absolute conclusion on what's going on. If I did, well, then it would affect my behavior in all kinds of ways. But I personally don't do that.
Yeah, that would be something I think
my goal is peace.
Yes.
Peace and a healthy, balanced way of living my life. That's what my goal is, no matter what's going on.
Well, with the book written now, it's also educating people.
Yes.
And it's also helping them to see that a regular woman, we'll call you regular,
Right.
has
Right.
gone through something that maybe I have, and that if she can step up and talk about it, so can I now.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Alien Experiences has your own story, your own unique story,
Yes.
Nadine, along with 20 other cases. Now, it's my understanding that Barbara Lamb covered a 17-year period. Was that 17-year period with you or with another?
No, Barbara Lamb has been researching for a very long time. It's about 17 years, I believe, 17
Wow.
or 20 years. And from what I understand with Barbara is that her psychotherapy practice, suddenly people started appearing. She was not involved in this at all. She came out of Boston in a very conservative background, and she suddenly started having people come into her practice that were describing some of these events. And slowly but surely over time, she found herself in the middle of this. It was never her intention to become involved as a researcher or a therapist assisting others, but it happened. Yep. And so she's providing a tremendous service.
Well, Nadine, we've heard a lot of great things about Alien Experiences. We can only recommend it to those individuals that want to learn more about a true life abduction with Nadine, as well as 20 other people. I have read excerpts on your book. I have thoroughly gone over your website, and by the way, it's a great website.
Thank you.
I love the intro.
I just love that one picture of the alien with the little fuzzy hair on top of it. She looks female.
That's a hybrid.
Oh, she's
that is a character, a person, being that was presented to me on several occasions, years before as a child and then as an adult. And whether or not it's true, it had been alluded to me that it is possible some of my genetic material had gone into the creation of that
Wow.
female.
Wow.
I'm not
that
saying
is
I'm
a
convinced
huge
of that. I'm
statement
just saying
there,
that's what was presented to me.
Really?
And there's a connection. I find her very beautiful.
Wow.
And I have a very deep feeling about her. Strangely,
so how
strange
often
as it
have
sounds.
you seen her?
As a child, years ago, 3 or 4 times, and as an adult, on 2 separate occasions. That's all.
So Nadine, when you said genetic material, are you speaking from you directly or your father?
No, from me directly.
From you directly.
I'm saying it was suggested to me in one of my encounters that she was a product of my genetic material mixed with someone else's.
Amazing.
A non-human someone else.
Is there certain characteristics that, let's say that, I'm at grocery shopping or I'm at someplace, and I notice something very different about a person,
Well, I think, intuitively, we get a lot of information, and, being psychic that you are, you know all of that, and I think there's a lot of information that we do pick up that the ordinary person casts aside, but all of us, we do have a deep sense of intuition. And how many times have any of us had an intuitive feeling about something or somebody, only, of course, to find out that it was true? It happens plenty in all of our lives. I have had a couple of occasions in my day-to-day where I have met persons, and I had one particularly at the last convention I went to, which was MUFON International in up north last month in San Jose, and it was a pretty startling experience with other people witnessing it. And it would have been something akin to what's called the Men in Black, and it was an albino person that approached me. And it was a very chilling experience at the convention. So is there a possibility that there is a...
Also.
In amongst us? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I believe that? Yes, I believe there's a possibility.
Well, who's to say that knows? The fact is that they can coexist with us here. That would be wonderful. The fact is, we're open to it, but I just don't feel the fact is that they don't trust us. Although I could say,
well, that would be wonderful, but there's obviously a distrust and a sense of deception, and anytime there's deception, whether it's deception in our government hiding the truth from us because they may already realize this is a reality, that interaction is taking place, or deception amongst other beings themselves, who's comfortable with that? Ultimately, there's a lot of distrust in that.
Oh,
I don't like deception. But, again, can we cope with the truth?
I don't either.
Can we cope with the truth? Are we prepared to cope with the truth?
I don't think so. Not yet. Not yet.
If we have human liaisons that have come to grips with a new reality, those human liaisons could help, for example, a conversation like we're having, could help others to begin to integrate the possibility that there's a larger life here.
That's true. I would never reach out and purposely try to hurt them. That would not be my thing. But I would not.
No.
I would not have them for dinner. Not yet. I could.
No.
I'm not reached any of that comfort zone on it.
No.
On that note, but Angela, we have just 2 minutes left here on the show. Nadine got everything went so fast on it. Angela, did you want to give some more information out on that, Angela?
Well, certainly. I just want our listeners to go to www.alienexperiences.com, where you will find Nadine LaLetche's book. And thank you very much, Nadine, for being on the show. We certainly want to have you back.
It was my pleasure.
Hundreds of questions more to ask.
Okay.
Absolutely on this. And, the book, how many pages is this book, Nadine?
I think something like 230, something like that.
That's a pretty nice size book. Absolutely nice size book on it.
There will be a second one coming out next spring.
Next when?
Next spring.
Next spring.
It will be
Wonderful.
in the Experiences book, too, and it will be strictly a much more detailed and graphic illustration of my personal experiences.
Well, we'll certainly have you back on then once your
Great.
book is about to be published again. Well, if you were listening to the show, you were also listening through UPRN 105.3 New Orleans through the Paranormal Radio Network. It's been a pleasure, Nadine.
Thank
you so much for it. We've really, I have been educated completely on this, and I always find the fact is that this information is something that, some of us are not ready for. But the fact is, the more that you educate yourself, is the less fear that you have about anything. And I think that you've proven that, Nadine, this has helped you lose the fear and gain confidence, gain the courage, gain the strength to write this book, and you've done a super job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And everybody, that's our show. Make sure that you tune in next week. Angela, our guest for next week, real quick,
is Anna Maria Hemingway.
There we go. Stay tuned for that. And everybody, take care of yourself and each other. And we'll see you next week. God bless. Bye-bye.